Welcome to Ryan's Running Reviews in partnership with Roadrunner Sports, and today we're taking a look at one of the most recognizable running shoes around. It's the Adidas Ultraboost 5X. Let's run with it. Before we get started, I do want to say that these shoes were provided to me by Roadrunner Sports. However, no one had a chance to preview this video, and this final synopsis is my own. I'd also like to say please leave a like on the video and consider subscribing. Here we go. The Ultraboost is a unique shoe. It's probably one of the most famous running shoe models around, mainly because it got super popular with the lifestyle and sneakerhead crowd. Now, as time went on, the Boost material became a little bit too heavy for running shoes, which is why Adidas came out with Light Boost and debuted the Ultraboost Light, which was essentially the predecessor to this. Now, this is the Ultraboost 5X, and there's also another model called the Ultraboost 5. So there are two separate Ultraboost 5s, the original and then the 5X. So the only difference is the Ultraboost 5 has a midfoot cage, which is made of plastic, while we have no midfoot cage here on the Ultraboost 5X. You do have some substantial overlays across the midfoot, but there's no dedicated midfoot cage like we see on the original Ultraboost 5. So I hope that makes sense. It's a little bit confusing, but we do have a completely redesigned Ultraboost model compared to the Ultraboost Light we saw previously. The Ultraboost 5X is classified as a highly cushioned neutral daily trainer, great for runners that want a ton of stack height underfoot. Most other running shoes nowadays are getting larger midsoles, so Adidas decided to kind of update the Ultraboost and bring it into the modern age with even more cushioning. As far as the stack height goes, we have a whopping 38 millimeters in the heel and 28 in the forefoot, giving us a 10 millimeter heel to toe drop. I'm very happy to see they upped the stack height, especially in the forefoot, as I thought the previous version, the Ultraboost Light, was a bit firm towards the front half. Even though they added more to the midsole, it only weighs 9.7 ounces, which is really good for an Ultraboost model and fairly respectable among all other highly cushioned neutral shoes. Makes the Ultraboost model much more runnable compared to prior versions. We'll start off by talking about the upper because I do have some strong opinions, and I think the upper itself will either make or break the shoe depending on your preferences and overall foot shape. The upper itself is a one-piece knit material, which is actually fairly elastic and stretchy, has a decent amount of give to it. Now, I did find it to fit true to size, although because it is a one-piece knit upper, I found it to have a more snug sock-like fit. This is the Ultraboost 5X, which means we do not have the dedicated external plastic midfoot cage. Instead, they opted for these large kind of logo overlays on both the lateral and medial side. There's also some internal overlays as well, which all work together to give you some midfoot support. Now, that's really the only difference between the 5X and the Ultraboost 5, which I think is quite funny because I think it only saves you like 4% in weight, and for that to be the only difference in the entire shoe is just curious. Now, if you go towards the top of the lacing system, you do have these large plastic components where the laces interact and they kind of pull the shoe together to give you the lockdown. And for me, I wasn't in love with the lockdown. It was okay, it just wasn't the best. I felt like I had some sliding because the knit material is so elastic, and the heel counter has this kind of squishy space directly where your heel sits. So you do have the two plastic pieces on both the left and right side, which supports your foot, but your foot can kind of slide back a little bit further than it otherwise would in a more traditional heel counter. So overall for me, I just didn't have the best lockdown. I had to try to pull the laces really tight, which created some bunching on this one-piece knit tongue, which is always a complaint on knit uppers. Now, my hot take is I wish for the Ultraboost 5X, I wish they would just use the upper they used for the Supernova Prima, which is their other highly cushioned neutral trainer. This has a more traditional, more performance-oriented engineered mesh. I really like the tongue. It's gusseted, has some foam blocks at the top to help with lace pressure, and then you have plenty of padding with a more traditional stiff and rigid heel counter, which gave me a great lockdown and fit overall. I would love the Supernova Prima upper on the Ultraboost 5X, and then for this upper to be the Ultraboost 5 upper. So I hope that makes sense. That's my hot take. But for me, this stretchy knit upper with the setup and then the heel counter just didn't give me the best lockdown, which I do think is important when you have a midsole this large. Even though I didn't love the lockdown of the upper, I found it to be very comfortable, and I think it looks pretty sick as well. It's a great lifestyle upper, just not the best performance running upper, at least in my opinion. And then for the midsole, we have a whole lot of light boost here, and I'm very happy to see, like I talked about before, how they added more foam to the forefoot. It no longer feels dead when you get get towards the front part of the shoe, it feels like a very consistent, well-cushioned experience. We also have a torsion system, so if you flip the shoe over, you can kind of see this orange piece here, kind of creates this X, which keeps the shoe from flexing too much. The front kind of third does have a decent amount of bend to it, but as you get through the midfoot, it becomes fairly rigid. And I'll actually say this is a fairly stable neutral shoe, mainly because you do have that torsion bar and the light boost foam isn't overly soft or squishy. It's much firmer compared to something like Dream Strike Plus, like we see from the Supernova Prima. So for being a neutral shoe, is actually quite supportive and fairly stable. This version of light boost foam is very resilient and does not deform easily. I do think it has a moderate level of energy return, and for being a highly cushioned shoe, it's very approachable, mainly because it's not overly soft and squirrely. It does a decent job of kind of balancing being a neutral shoe and a supportive option as well. Now, on those slower runs, the foam feels a bit firmer. However, when you put more energy into it and start to pick up the pace, you start to feel it come alive. The one issue I have with that is when you start to go faster, the upper doesn't give you the most confidence, especially if you start to take some turns. So I would love to see what performance upper feels like on this, because then you could really kind of push it and take advantage of the light boost foam, which I am quite impressed with. So if you're someone who likes a kind of a more firm and very resilient midsole, I think light boost will be your friend, mainly because it's not overly soft. Something interesting is that the insert is incredibly thin. It's not your typical Ortholite insert. It just feels like this very, very thin sliver of foam. So if you're someone who wants to maybe make this more comfortable, maybe put in a thicker insert. But yeah, just kind of want to point that out. Super thin insert. Moving on to the outsole, we have a whole lot of thick rubber coverage here from heel to toe, which should be great for the overall longevity. There's two different kinds of rubber. You have this kind of smooth, translucent rubber through the midfoot, and then in the toe and heel, we have the classic Continental natural performance rubber, which is going to be a little bit more eco-friendly. That Continental tire rubber also has a few more lugs to it, which does help with the overall grip, while again, it's pretty smooth through the midfoot. Overall, didn't have any major issues with the grip and traction, and like we touched on before, you can see that kind of X-shaped torsion system, which gives the shoe a little bit more rigidity and overall stability. So overall, I think the Ultraboost 5 and 5X are going to do extremely well, mainly because this new midsole is much more comfortable compared to what we've seen in prior versions. It's really stable, gives you a nice kind of resilient ride, nice level of energy turn as well, without being overly mushy and soft. Is it the most energetic midsole out there? No, but it's a nice kind of arrow in Adidas quiver, especially with regard to their daily trainers. Now, the big thing here is the upper. It's a little bit too elastic, maybe a little bit too lifestyle focused. I wish they gave us a more performance upper, especially because they made two different versions, and the difference between the 5X and the 5 is just the midfoot, which I don't think will make a huge difference, especially because I've tried shoes with that similar plastic midfoot cage before, and honestly, I think this performed just as well, if not better, compared to that plastic midfoot cage, and doesn't save you a whole ton of weight. So it's a nice direction that Adidas is going. I think they maybe just need to make a few small tweaks to the upper. I know they can do it, especially because they did it on the Supernova Prima, and I would love them to bring it maybe to the Ultraboost line. Well, that concludes the review. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you like the direction they're taking the Ultraboost, or would you rather go with something like the Supernova Prima? I would love to hear from you. I'm Ryan from Ryan's Running Reviews, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks.